My name is Emily. I'm 36, and I've always been the quiet one in the family, the dependable daughter, the one who never made waves. My younger sister, Isabella, was the golden child. She had the bubbly personality, the photogenic smile, and the picture-perfect nuclear family, complete with a husband, 2 kids, and an Instagram page full of pumpkin patches and beach vacations. Meanwhile, I've been running a tech consultancy I built from scratch. Working quietly, saving smart, investing wisely, and steadily building a life that, while not flashy, was entirely mine. My parents, especially my mother, always leaned toward Isabella. At first, it was small things. She'd get the bigger slice of cake, the last word in arguments, the nicer room on vacations. It was brushed off as she's the baby, and I let it go. I let a lot of things go, actually, like when Mom paid for Isabella's wedding. All of it. While telling me to be grateful for my independence, or when Dad helped them with a down payment on their first house, saying she's starting a family, Emily, it's different. Different apparently meant I wasn't worth the same support. I didn't say anything. I just worked harder. By the time I was 30, I had built my company into something solid, not flashy, but stable enough that I was earning more than both of my parents combined. I bought my own house debt-free. I set up a retirement fund, and most importantly, I started a trust originally meant to ensure that if anything ever happened to me, the people I loved would be taken care of. I didn't tell anyone about it. Not Mom, not Dad, not Isabella. Over the years, I noticed a pattern. Every time Isabella had a financial hiccup, Mom would call me. Not Emily. Isabella needs help with the car repair? Can you pitch in? Or her son's tuition is due, and they weren't expecting such a large fee. Can you help? Sometimes the calls came under the guise of emotional appeals. Family supports family, or she'd do it for you. Except she never did. Isabella once forgot my birthday 3 years in a row. Mom said she was busy with the kids. I had the flu once. Bad enough that I ended up in the hospital for a night. And when I called to let them know, Mom just sighed and said, "Well, Isabella's dealing with so much stress. Try not to worry her." Still, I helped quietly, steadily, until the day I realized they weren't asking, they were expecting. That's when things began to shift. It started during a dinner last year. We were all seated around the table at my parents' house, and Mom was going on and on about how Isabella was such a strong woman for managing 2 kids in a household, and how some people didn't understand real responsibility. I didn't say anything at first. I just sipped my wine and listened. But then she turned to me, smiling, that condescending, syrupy smile she reserved for when she thought she was being wise, and said, "Emily, I just hope you know that when the time comes, we'll expect you to take care of Isabella. She has real needs, a family to look after. You'll understand when you have your own one day." I looked at her for a long moment, not angry, not sad, just tired. I didn't respond. I just nodded slightly and changed the subject. That night, I updated my trust. I removed both my parents and Isabella as beneficiaries. I added in a scholarship fund for underprivileged kids interested in tech. I updated my will. I wrote a letter, detailed, firm, and unemotional, explaining my reasons. My lawyer reviewed it and signed off. For the next 6 months, I kept my distance. I returned calls, visited on holidays, but kept it surface level. And then last week, Mom invited me to lunch, just the 2 of us. She said she wanted to talk about the future of the family. We met at a quiet cafe, the kind she liked, all organic salads and overpriced coffee. She hugged me stiffly, complimented my shirt, and launched right into small talk. For 20 minutes, she danced around something, eyes flicking nervously around the room, tapping her fingers on the table. Then she finally said it. "We've been thinking," she began, "about the inheritance." I didn't say anything. I just watched her. "Your father and I feel it makes the most sense for the bulk of it to go to Isabella," she continued. "She has a husband, 2 children, real responsibilities. You're stable, independent. You don't really need it the way she does." I sat very still, not because I was surprised. I wasn't, but because I knew what was coming next. "You understand, right?" she said gently. "You've always been so reasonable." And that's when I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the envelope. It was thick, heavy with legal pages and sealed. I slid it across the table without a word. She blinked at it. "What's this?" she asked, her hand hovering over it. "You might want to read that before you finish that sentence," I said, my voice quiet. She opened it slowly, pulling out the letter from my lawyer and the copy of the updated trust details. I watched her face shift from curiosity to confusion, then to something that flickered dangerously close to panic. Her fingers gripped the edge of the paper, her eyes scanning faster and faster. She looked up at me. What is this?" "That's the trust one built," I said. "The one you didn't know about." It used to include you, Dad, and Isabella. It doesn't anymore. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. She looked down again, flipping to the section with the beneficiary list. Her voice finally returned, high and shrill. You took us out. What? I didn't answer. I just looked at her. Really looked at her. And for the first time, I think she realized I wasn't the quiet, obedient daughter anymore. She tried again. Emily. This doesn't make sense. We're family. Exactly, I said, standing up. We are. Or at least we were. And that's when her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it. Then she froze because step 2 had just begun. She stared at her phone like it had just burned her. The screen lit up with a notification she didn't seem to understand at first. Then her face drained of color. I didn't need to see it to know what it was. My lawyer had scheduled the message to go out during our meeting. A formal notice sent to both of my parents terminating their access to the discretionary account I'd quietly been maintaining for them, the one that had paid for their utilities, property taxes, and a good portion of Isabella's recurring expenses. Mom's voice wavered. Emily, what is this? What is this message? I didn't sit back down. It's just confirmation. Everything is finalized. But why now? She asked, trying to laugh like this was a misunderstanding we could smooth over with a smile and a cup of tea. This feels sudden. Sudden? That word stuck in my head like a nail. No, I said. What's sudden is realizing that I've been treated like a resource, not a daughter. What's sudden is watching my success be rewritten as selfishness just because I don't have a spouse or kids to validate it for you. Her hands were shaking. She tried to fold the letter back into the envelope, but it just crumpled awkwardly between her fingers. You're overreacting. This doesn't have to be permanent. It is, I said. This lunch was a courtesy. The silence stretched between us, thick and bitter. She blinked rapidly, then reached for her purse, rummaging like she might pull out some magical object to reverse all of this. Let's not make this a scene. We can talk with your father. He didn't even know you were coming today. He's been under stress. I cut her off. You didn't invite me to talk. You invited me to inform me like a formality. Like I don't get a say in how I'm treated or where my money goes. The waiter approached hesitantly, sensing the tension. Would you like anything else? Mom plastered on a shaky smile. We're fine, thank you. I nodded politely at him and turned back to her. Tell Dad I'll be forwarding him the same documents. Just in case he wants to pretend he didn't know about them. Her eyes flashed. You don't have to be cruel. I raised an eyebrow. You think this is cruelty? No. Cruelty is raising a child with the unspoken rule that she only matters when she's useful. This is just closure. She actually looked hurt for a moment, and a tiny part of me, the old part, the kid who still wanted her approval, flinched. But I didn't let it show. I couldn't. I have a meeting, I said, glancing at my watch. I'll let you take some time with those documents. I walked out without waiting for a goodbye. I sat with that screenshot open for a long time, rereading the messages, not because I didn't believe them, but because some stubborn part of me still wanted to believe that maybe I had misunderstood, that there was some context I was missing. But no, it was all there, black and white, time-stamped and cruel. The jokes, the mockery, the way they talked about me like I was some overly dramatic punching bag with a wallet instead of a backbone. And I had let them for years. I had let them, but that part of me, the quiet, obedient Emily, who stayed in line and nodded through every veiled insult and dismissive smile, she was gone now, buried under the weight of too many favors and not enough thanks. I drafted one final email. It took me almost an hour to write, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I wanted to make sure every word counted. Subject: closure to Isabella, Mom, and Dad. I read your messages. I saw the screenshot. I guess now I know what real family means to you. You've made it clear how you see me, as a tool, a backup plan, a bank account with no voice and no boundaries. And for a long time, I accepted that role. I thought if I gave enough time, money, energy, maybe you'd see me as more than the spare part in your picture-perfect family dynamic. But I was wrong. So, let me make something perfectly clear now that the dust is settling. I don't owe you anything. Not anymore. I don't owe Isabella for choosing to have children she couldn't afford. I don't owe Mom and Dad for favoring her at every turn while treating my achievements like minor footnotes. I don't owe anyone silence in exchange for peace. Because there was never peace, only tolerance, and only when I was useful. You asked why I rewrote the trust, why I pulled funding, why I cut everyone out. It's not because of a single lunch conversation or a text message. It's because you taught me something over and over. I'm only valuable to you when I'm giving. And the moment I stop, I become selfish, cruel, ungrateful. Well, now you don't have to worry about that anymore. Effective immediately, the educational fund for the twins is dissolved. The house loan co-signed in 2019 has been bought out and transferred to me. Your lien on the property is cancelled. All financial accounts previously shared or connected to me have been closed. The will is final. Your names are not in it. In your words, I guess this means I've torn the family apart. But let's be honest, it was already broken. You just never thought I'd stop taping it back together. I'm done fixing what you keep breaking and goodbye. Emily. I hit send, and with that, it was finished. At first, there was silence. A heavy, eerie kind of quiet. No responses for hours. Then, just after noon, Isabella replied with a single word. Wow. A few minutes later, Dad called. I didn't answer. Then Mom, then Isabella again. Eventually, they stopped. I knew they weren't done trying, but they were regrouping, trying to find a new angle, a fresh guilt trip. But it wouldn't work. Not anymore. A week passed. Then two. And I got a letter in the mail. Not an email, a letter from my mother. The envelope was cream-colored, fancy, with her signature cursive on the front. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won. Inside was a 3-page letter written in long, neat loops, her serious handwriting. It started with memories. How I used to help in the kitchen. How I held Isabella's hand when she was scared of the dark. Then came the guilt. How hard life had been on them. How I didn't understand what it meant to be a parent. How Isabella struggles and I thrive. And isn't that worth some consideration? But it wasn't an apology. Not once. No ownership. No accountability. Just an elaborate dance around the truth. She still didn't think I had a right to be angry. She just hated that I'd stopped playing. Along at the bottom was a request. Let's meet. No lawyers, no anger, just you and me. I want my daughter back. I folded the letter, placed it back in the envelope, and filed it away. Not in the trash, not to be reread, but somewhere it wouldn't touch me again. Because the truth is, I don't hate them. I'm not bitter. I'm not raging or seeking vengeance. I'm just done. Done giving to people who see generosity as weakness. Done accepting scraps and being called ungrateful when I ask for more. Done being the easy child. The one who doesn't need attention or fairness or love with strings attached, and honestly, being done feels a lot like peace. A month later, I got a call from my lawyer. The trust was officially transitioned into a non-profit scholarship fund. The money I had spent years building, would now go to kids who reminded me of myself. Kids who had dreams, but no one to fight for them. Not family, but people who deserved it. I attended the launch ceremony in a dark suit, standing quietly at the back of the room while the first recipients shared their stories. They didn't know who I was. I didn't introduce myself. I just listened. And for the first time in a long time, I felt proud. Not for what I'd earned, but for what I'd finally learned to let go of. That night, I sat in my quiet house. No texts buzzing, no tension in my chest, just music playing low, a glass of wine, and a stack of applications to review for the next wave of scholarship students. And I smiled because I hadn't lost my family. I had simply stopped mistaking them for one. The cool spring air hit me like a reset button. For a moment, I stood there on the sidewalk, hands in my pockets, heart pounding. I didn't feel triumphant. Not yet. But I felt free. And then, as if on cue, my phone vibrated in my pocket. A dozen notifications flooded in. Texts, missed calls, emails from Dad, from Isabella, even from Aunt Carla, who I hadn't heard from in years. The news had spread faster than I expected. I took a deep breath and opened Isabella's text first. Emily. Mom's crying. Dad's freaking out. And I just got a call from the school saying, your payment for the twins didn't go through. You're punishing them now? Seriously, grow up. There it was. No concern, no reflection, just outrage that the faucet had turned off. Then Dad's message came in. Call me now. We need to talk. This isn't how family handles things. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my email and queued the next scheduled message. This one would go out at 5 p.m. A clean legal memo formally dissolving the shared investment account I had once used to help Isabella's husband's failed startup. It was only step 3 because if they thought a few angry texts would bring me crawling back, they hadn't understood me at all. I wasn't being petty. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was simply done, and by nightfall, they'd realized just how many threads I had quietly been holding together and how quickly everything unraveled without me. I spent the rest of the afternoon trying not to look at my phone. But the notifications were relentless. Messages rolled in one after the other, each more frantic than the last. Isabella was the loudest. Her text switched rapidly from accusatory to pleading. You're seriously going to leave my kids hanging? This isn't you, Emily. You don't punish innocent people. Please just talk to Mom and Dad. They're scared. Mom's blood pressure went up. Okay, I'm sorry. We didn't mean to hurt you. Just call me, okay? Each message felt less like an apology and more like a chess move. Tactical, manipulative, and most importantly, never admitting to the years of quiet favoritism. The subtle digs, the constant expectation that my hard work should be redistributed like a family tax. Dad finally called around 6:30. I didn't pick up. He called again and again. By the fourth time, I finally answered. "Emily," he said immediately, not even giving me time to speak. "What are you doing?" I didn't respond. "Your mother is in tears," he continued. "She showed me the documents." "What? Is this nonsense about removing us from the trust and cutting off the accounts? We've always been there for you." There it was. "We've always been there for you." The selective memory was incredible. "You've been there when it was convenient," I said quietly. "You've supported me when I did exactly what you expected. The second I made choices you didn't approve of, you pulled back. The second Isabella needed something, it was my wallet you came for, not hers." There was a pause. I could hear him breathing through his nose the way he always did when he was trying not to explode. "We're family, Emily," he said again. "You don't just walk away from that." "I didn't walk away," I replied calmly. "You pushed me out years ago. I just finally stopped pretending I was still invited to the table." "You're being ridiculous," he snapped. "So what? Isabella gets a little more attention. She has 2 kids, a mortgage, real responsibilities. You think I don't have responsibilities just because I'm not married?" I said, my voice rising slightly. "Despite myself, you think because I don't have kids, my time, my money, my effort, it's just disposable, just there for you to redirect whenever Isabella makes another mess she can't clean up?" He was quiet. "I paid off your second mortgage, Dad." Quietly. I never said a word. "I paid for Isabella's emergency C-section because her insurance wouldn't cover it. I helped Ryan get that consulting job, the one you all pretend he earned. I was fine helping. I never asked for recognition. I didn't want it, but I expected respect. And when I asked for even an ounce of that, when I said no, just once, you acted like I'd betrayed you." There was a long silence. "I don't even know who you are right now," he muttered. "That's funny," I said. "Because for the first time in a long time, I do." I ended the call. At exactly 7 p.m., step 3 triggered. A new email was sent to the family accountant, the one who managed the discretionary spending account Mom always referred to as the safety net. It was formally closed, with a detailed list of recipients and how much had been dispersed over the past 6 years. The email CC'd every person who had ever benefited from that account, cousins, aunts, even Isabella's kid's school administrator, along with a note from my lawyer explaining that all further inquiries should be directed to his office. Not me. I wasn't trying to humiliate anyone, but I wasn't going to let them pretend they hadn't taken advantage of me either. That night, I turned off my phone and sat out on my balcony with a glass of wine. For the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel like I was waiting for the next demand to drop. No one could guilt me anymore. No one could cry their way into another check or call me selfish just because I said no. The next morning, I woke up to a different kind of message, an email from Isabella. It wasn't long, just a few cold sentences. "I hope you're happy. You've torn this family apart. I don't know what kind of person writes their own sister out of their will, but I guess money matters more to you than blood." Attached to it was a screenshot of a family group chat. I had never been part of a group titled Real Family, a chat where they'd been mocking me for years. Old messages. Isabella joking that I was the human ATM, Mom saying I was too sensitive and probably going to die alone if I didn't lighten up. Dad adding that at least I'm good for something. It was all there. Every little thing I'd suspected confirmed. And at the very bottom, a new message sent just minutes before the email. "Guess the ATM's out of service." I stared at it for a long time. Not with anger, with clarity. Because step 4 was about to begin. Months passed after the ceremony, and I kept moving forward. The nonprofit flourished, and I continued with my work, but something in me had shifted permanently. The weight of years spent appeasing others, of trying to fit into a family dynamic that never truly embraced me, had finally lifted. I no longer felt like I was just surviving, but rather thriving, on my own terms. I still heard from Isabella, though. The texts were fewer, but every once in a while, she'd reach out, usually in a panic, asking for help with something. The tone had changed, no longer demanding, but rather humble, almost apologetic. Still, I never replied. I couldn't. The things I had done for her, for them, had all been taken for granted. And I was done being the one who held everything together. While they treated me like an afterthought. One day, months later, I ran into Aunt Carla at a community event. She'd always been the one family member who saw me, really saw me, and I couldn't help but feel a twinge of warmth when I saw her. She came over and gave me a tight hug. "Emily," she said, pulling back, her eyes scanning me as if she could tell something had changed. "I'm proud of you. You've always been a quiet force in this family. I know it wasn't easy, but you did what was right. I smiled faintly, grateful for her words. Thank you, Aunt Carla. It's been a long time coming. We talked for a while, and I could see how much she cared, how much she respected me. It made me realize, more than ever, that real family is about respect, mutual support, and understanding, not just blood ties. I had built my own family now, not of people who I had to constantly prove my worth to, but of people who had always seen me for who I truly was. As the months turned into years, I continued to watch the scholarship fund grow. And with it, the lives of young, hopeful kids who now had the opportunity to chase their dreams. I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride every time I heard about a new student's success. I was at peace. I sat on my balcony, watching the sunset, and felt a deep sense of inner peace settling within me. 1,000 thoughts passed through my mind, but in that silence, I realized one thing: I had made the right choice. I had freed myself from the weight that had held me down. And now, I could move forward. Life began to fill with meaning, the kind that I had created for myself. I no longer needed validation, no longer sought approval. Everything I had done for my family was now part of my past, a memory of who I was and who I had become. And though my relationships with them would never be the same, I didn't feel a sense of loss. On the contrary, I felt liberated. I had written my own story. And that was the most important thing. The world outside continued on its course, but now I looked at it with the understanding that everything I did had significance. Not because someone else expected it from me, but because I chose to do it. That choice, that freedom, that was what truly mattered. And in that moment, when I quietly let go of the past, I realized I no longer sought approval. I had already received everything I needed, my own life, full of meaning and independence. I was ready for the next step. What came next, I would decide for myself.